So we're doomed.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another round of Battle Tested History with me and Dan Uebel.
Yep.
Tonight, I got to admit, tonight was a tough one for me. We decided to get away from World War II and go back to two movies that portrayed one of the most disastrous defeats in British history. 1964's Zulu, the first movie Michael Caine was in, and the 1979 movie Zulu Dawn, which was the prequel about the Battle of Isandlwana, when a tribe of Zulu warriors just wiped out half of a British army in an afternoon. So let's begin. I'm going to start. I think we should start with Zulu Dawn.
Okay.
Which was the prequel, but it was the first movie. The movie depicts the first battle, Isandlwana. And let me just give a very brief overview. The British in Africa had this way of doing things. The way they took over tribal lands, I think they did this with the Boer, was they would, if there was a small break in the treaty, a small violation, the British Army would say, okay, if you don't surrender, we're going to come in and invade you. And several of the smaller tribal groups said, sure, no problem. We can't beat you. The Zulus were fierce warriors. They still maintained the tradition. One of the local pastors was trying to Christianize them, and none of them wanted to go along with it. The warrior chief at the time, Katsueo, and I'm probably butchering the name, was a very severe but very good ruler. So when they got the ultimatum that said, and they do this a lot, they show this a lot in Zulu Dawn. When they get the ultimatum, surrender or we're going to come in, they ignored it. So the British Army crosses the river into Zulu territory, and they march for a day or two and set up at the base of this small mountain range, Isandlwana, which I had a friend of mine visit there a few years ago. He sent me photographs. Oh, my God. They still got monuments there. To the British divisions that fell, to the Zulu warriors, now on my bucket list. And then Zulu Dawn deals predominantly with the Zulu attack that, because of British overconfidence, because of a bad British commander, and because everybody just thought, a bunch of natives with spears, the assegais and shields are not going to beat the British Army. It was one of the most humiliating defeats in British history.
Agreed.
So,
before we jump in, then I wonder, I never looked this up, but did they actually film in the location the battle happened, or did they just pick a similar site? Any idea?
I think they filmed Zulu Dawn. If they didn't film it at the location, they filmed it in South Africa near where the battle took place.
Okay.
But I mean, it's so similar to the real location, unless you've actually been there and seen it, I think it's hard to tell.
I wouldn't know. When I heard you talking about it, it kind of popped in my head. I don't know if they actually filmed things other than battles of Normandy, that they actually film on the spot of a battle.
Yeah, no, that one was, I think that one was filmed in South Africa. The ironic thing is, it was made in 1979, which was the 100th anniversary of the battle. And they figured they'd air it to show it because Zulu was such a success. And of the two movies, I was very surprised to find this out. It is the most historically accurate. They go into some minor detail about the British machinations with the with the treaties and with diplomacy. And Chelmsford, who was Peter O'Toole's character, who was the British general who let him in, he was overconfident and cocky. I do think some of the minor characters, and I was not able to find this to prove or disprove it, some of the minor characters, like the young boy that was with the other soldier that was going out to the 1,000-foot mark and putting the stakes down so the British knew where to shoot. I think some of them were put in there to dramatize the effect. But through the whole battle, they landed at Sandawana. And, some of them are like, we should build a blockade around here. And Chelmsford's like, no, we don't need a blockade. There's too many vehicles. We're out in the open. This is nothing's ever going to happen. Stop worrying about it. And what they didn't know was that the minute the British had crossed the river, the Zulu warriors were coming in to get them. One thing I did not know, remember the scene, I think it was Burt Lancaster, or one of them was chasing one of the warriors.
Yes.
And they come over the hill and there's the whole army right there.
Yeah.
That actually happened. The attack was, neither side was prepared. The Zulus were going to attack the next day, but they figured the minute the British saw them, they just went in. Yeah. And you don't see it much in the movie, but the Zulus use this. They call it the bull attack. The main army, the head, would charge directly into the British. And then off to the sides were these horns, the two flanks. And once the British were engaged with the head and were just locked into battle, then the horns would come in and cut them off and annihilate them. And we got some... Good day, mates. Unfortunately, I don't know who any of you are. You're all Facebook users. So I'm assuming one of you is the NSA guy, one of you is the CIA guy, and one of you is one of the fact checkers.
The British intelligence is here.
We used to joke, hey, that's an oxymoron.
Well, they say that about our intelligence too. No offense, CIA boy.
No, I used to say it about all our other intelligence agencies. But it is really a good movie. It is very accurate. The battle scenes are just, when the battle finally starts, and everything I've read said it really depicts the chaos of the battle. Especially the fact that here were the troops in the front lines fighting, and the guys in the back had no clue what were going on. They were, they were cooking the meals and they were,
too spread out. The ammunition wasn't even all in place yet. It was still in transport at one point. Yeah. Literally, they got caught with their pants down.
Oh, yeah. And they got
killed.
They got screwed. Yeah. Oh, hi, Mike. How you doing? I will tickle Fred's ear. You want to give me yeah. Okay.
Mike, the blind guy?
Mike. Yeah,
gotcha.
Mike's not able to see well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
But the movie is actually very good. The complete utter collapse of the British Army at Sandawana, and from everything I've read and researched, it was done very accurately. The complete chaos, the people running helter skelter, what were like the cannons, trying to get out and they overturned. And what was very true was the Zulu warriors picked up those rifles, the modern Martini Henry rifles, which were the best rifles that the British Army had at the time. And those would be used in later battles. But it's very accurate. And then the really great scene is, and it's got a great cast. I mean, Burt Lancaster, Peter O'Toole, Denham Elliott. I can't think of some of the others right now. But very well done. It showed the chaos. And then afterwards, when Chelmsford comes back and sees what had happened, You know, he's sitting there, and then somebody gives him a message that says, yes, the Zulu army is, ooh, you got snacks. Now, you see, go ahead. See, if I had those snacks, I'd just drop them on the floor, and Fred would be happy for an hour.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry
It's
about
hysterical.
it.
That boy did not want to let up the cheese balls, man.
Oh my God. That reminds me of the one where the guy was on, I think he was talking about North Korea or something. He was in Hong Kong or Taiwan, and the little kid breaks into the room, the little girl with the bassinet, she pushes her way in, and the mother runs in again, and then the other kid comes in like eating a lollipop, and she's trying to push her, and the guy was just so deadpan. He was trying to be really straight about it. Everybody in the news studio was laughing.
I feel bad because you were just talking, but I mean, that's, by the way, that's my roommate and their little one.
Oh, okay. You come on.
So
you're not going to torment the cat.
See, now your kid's in it.
Oh, yeah. So, so what did you think of the movie?
Okay. Zulu Dawn. I did a little research before I watched the 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched the movie, I'm going to hit this from 2 different sides, cinematic wise and historical war. So I found the movie itself hard to watch. It did focus on the British hierarchy. I did like the fact that they had a few scenes where you just see the British camp in South Africa set up, and they're out there playing badminton and having tea, and all the generals are talking, because it is such a contrast to the country itself. They brought their culture there. I get it, but to me, they just harped on it for 90% of the movie. It wasn't till the end that we started finding out. Peter O'Toole was aloof as to what the dangers he really faced. They didn't have their supply chain in place. They were spread out far too, nobody knew in the back, like you said, nobody knew what was happening back there. These guys are up here getting killed and they're looking for more ammunition. Yeah. And nobody back there that has the ammunition is getting it forward because they don't know. I don't like some of the stereotypical characters that they portrayed in here, like the supply sergeant, because let's face it, if you're in a military and your supply guy is being that anal with bullets, he's probably going to get shot before anybody else. Friendly fire.
But like you said, I think that was stereotypical of the British military mentality. We do this by the book, stand in line. But I think it also pointed out, and again, I don't know if it was accurate or not, that the crates were not prepared for rapid use. You had to unscrew all the crates. Yeah,
it wasn't a matter of just popping open a lid.
Right.
It took time. As far as the Zulu warriors, that was the key thing for me. You're talking about a people that live in a very hostile environment. They're used to fighting some of the biggest predators next to man. And of course, they're fighting amongst themselves with the other tribes. The Zulus were the dominant ones. And I did love the fact that when they decided we're not going to put up with this, let's go take care of business, they didn't hold back. They went. Yes. They massed in force and they went ahead and they fought. Sorry, they're knocking again.
That's okay. I'm not ignoring Dan. I'm just looking at some of the notes I have on my screen.
Sorry, roommates. Okay. They're just getting home from shopping. That's what it is.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So, yeah, I also like the fact that these people fought with spears and they fought with shields, and they're skinned shields at that. We're not talking like hardened wood or anything. And they were fearless. They were going to go do this. So they're up against modern weaponry. of the time. Guns, bullets, not, powder and ball, actual, bullets.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right on that. So Zulu Dawn, like you had said, this was the first battle. I actually watch them in a different order, so we'll get into Zulu later. But for me, now I see what happened to the 1,200, or was it 2,200 British soldiers that literally died. They lost that battle.
Let's see. Chelmsford left them on the 20. Chelmsford left them in the morning of the 22nd. He took 2,800 soldiers and 600 auxiliary. The Zulus attacked with 20,000 soldiers. 1,800 British were killed and 350 civilians.
Wow. Yeah, terrifying that must have been.
Oh, yeah.
20,000 warriors coming your way.
And they think 1,000 to 3,000 Zulus died at that. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, a good movie. It's just, it's a movie of its time. A lot of stereotypical people put in there. Some of them are factual. A lot of them are just filler for a story.
Yeah.
And I found it a bit off-putting.
Well, there's a blog I found recently, The War Movie Buff. And this guy does what we do, except he does it in writing. And he called Zulu Dawn. He pointed out some of the inaccuracies that you and I did. He said it is competently done. The scale is impressive. Filming in Africa helped with the verisimilitude. The vistas are expansive and add to the geographical accuracy. The cast is expansive, as well as the huge number of extras make a grand impression. So he really liked this movie. He gave this movie an A. I would watch it. It was made because Zulu 1964 was such a blockbuster. That movie just when it came out, people were like, "Oh, this is awesome!" So they decided, "Hey, let's go ahead. Let's make the movie about the Isandawana." But apparently, it died at the box office for several reasons. One, you really don't want to celebrate on the 100th anniversary of the battle, the worst defeat British had against the native force.
Right.
So even though the movie was accurate and good, really, really good. I mean, as a movie, it's done well. There's no CGI. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of extras doing the battle scenes. It was
production value was extremely good. I'll give it that. It's just
yeah, and it was very well done. But the movie never went over well. It just did not do well in America, and it did not do well in the States. So
I actually liked Zulu better.
Oh God, I see now. We'll jump into Zulu 1964. This was the movie, and I don't know about you, but when I grew up in high school, late 70s, early 80s, this was the movie to watch. Oh my God, you had to see Zulu. Like if it came to the theater, you all went to see Zulu. It is such a phenomenal movie. A small band of British soldiers standing up against the Zulu army, and like 120 British soldiers standing up against 20,000 Zulu warriors, and we win. Except most of that is not true.
Of course.
And that broke my heart because I love this movie. This was one of the movies that really got me hooked on history. Oh, what a great... I went out and bought the book, The Washing of the Spears, which came out around that time. It's a thick book, about 600 pages. Very precise, very detailed accounting of the Zulu War. Isandawana, Rorke's Drift, and then the big final battle at Ulandi, where the British finally overpowered the Zulus. This movie was phenomenal. There's one funny scene. One thing this movie did that I really appreciated that Zulu Dawn didn't, they made the Zulus main characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were not the
opening
afterthought.
Yeah, no, yeah, they weren't just the bad guys. It opens with the Zulu, and I don't know if the Zulu warrior ceremony is true or not.
I don't either, but it was a big wedding ceremony, I think.
It was a big wedding ceremony, yeah. And the DeWitt is sitting there, the pastor who's all prim and proper with his screamy little daughter, and that was all bullshit. That was bullshit. The daughter never existed. The family was living in South Africa. DeWitt did exist. He's the one that set up the Rourke's Drift, and he turned it into a hospital as well as a missionary. And they were not at any ceremony when the war started. But I think it put him there to show that the Zulu chieftain, Kathweo, let them go. They were not combatants. He let them go. I think they were trying to show. But the character of DeWitt, he was not a coward. He was not a traitor. He was not an alcoholic. He was none of those things. He helped build the defenses. And then when the Zulu army approached, they said to him, "Get out of here. You're not a soldier. Go with your family." So he departed honorably. But there was one funny scene I loved. I read that, the warrior that comes running in and, is telling Kathweo, the British have attacked. They've crossed the river. In America, nobody, in America and England, nobody got it. When they showed it in South Africa, in Zululand, everybody laughed their ass off, because what he actually said when he runs up to the chieftain is, "I don't believe I'm being paid enough for this role."
Really?
Yeah, because there were no subtitles. He comes running up and says to me, "I don't believe I'm being paid enough for this role," and the chief rolled with it. And it said that when they finally showed it in Africa, when that scene happened, everyone in the audience, all the natives laughed. And then it was like, somebody had to ask, "Why are you laughing at that?" And that's when they told them, "Oh, he's screwing around on the camera."
That's great. I didn't know that.
I didn't either, but I love that. I love that type of stuff. But the movie itself, all right. I'm assuming a lot of you have seen Zulu. It is such a classic. Very briefly, Stanley Baker is an engineer who is building a bridge across the river for them to retreat to. Not retreat to, for the British to bring supplies over.
To cross over, yeah.
Cross over. And they start seeing all the retreating people from Isandlwana. So he goes back to Rourke's Drift. There he meets, not Chelmsford. There he meets, oh, shoot, hang on. Got the wrong one. Oh, come on. Oh, I don't have it here. There he meets the Michael Caine character. Chad, I think. Yeah. I
don't remember the guy's name, the military guy's name, but I would have just said, "Oh, they meet Michael Caine for the first time."
Bromhead. Stanley Baker playing Bromhead. He was the bridge master. And Chad was Michael Caine. Now, in the minute you see Michael Caine, first thing that came to my mind was, do you remember the character that House played in Blackadder when they did the Renaissance version, the fop?
No.
Oh, this guy is a fop. They have him out. He's hunting. He comes back. He's prim and proper. When he's looking down, because I'm a soldier, you're just an engineer. And none of that. That's all bullshit. The two of them knew each other. They had met before. The Michael Caine character, Chad, was not a foppish, overbearing pain in the ass. Now, ironically, let me see. Ironically, and this is what I got, in the movie, they're portrayed as brilliant fighters. But let me see if I can find it here. Don't know how this I don't know how the movie worked out this way. If it's true. Oh, come on. Where is it? I just looked at it a few minutes ago. I take way too many notes on these things. But there was a general later. Let me see. Oh, come on. It was actually funny. You're brilliant. Just... Oh, maybe here it is. General Woolsey, who knew these officers, and General Woolsey was the model for the Pirates of Penzance. You know, I am the very model of a modern major general. Yeah. General Woolsey, who was a well-known, well-respected, said of these two useless officers, scarcely, he said of Chad, which was Michael Caine's character, a useless officer, scarcely able to do his regular work, while Bromhead, Stanley Baker, the engineer, capital fellow at everything except soldiering, but brave, but hopelessly stupid.
Which is funny because in the movie, that's not how, well, Michael Caine was portrayed that way, but
yeah,
the engineer was portrayed as like this mastermind.
Yeah, mastermind, tough. You know, Michael Caine rose to the occasion. But the more I researched it, when you see the movie, it's these British soldiers. You got the drunken hooligan who's been put to Rorke's Drift as a punishment in the hospital. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got the typical, the sergeant major, the tall guy with the long beard and the mustache. And, you know, you've got this top British military unit going up against the remains of the Zulu army. It's all bullshit. And that devastated me when I found out. After Isandlwana, the Zulu army retreated. They defeated the enemy. They retreated. They were going to wait and see if they were either going to be attacked or if the British would withdraw. There was a group of about 4,000 reservists that did not take part, Zulu warriors, reservists, that did not take part in the Battle of Isandlwana. They were older, middle-aged warriors past their prime. These guys were chubby. They had wives. They had children. You know, it'd be like, you know, if there's a war with Iran, they, you know, say, Scott, you're coming back. Here's a gun. So they weren't facing the huge Zulu army that the movie implies. They were,
or even the in-prime warrior.
Yeah, they were facing only 4,000. Now, granted, 4,000 to 100 and some odd is still shitty odds, but it doesn't come across the same way. Yes, I saw that. I'm so disappointed. I like the Michael Caine. One thing, just briefly off topic, I loved Michael Caine and Peter O'Toole, and since they're in both, one is in each movie, I can say this. I loved listening to the stories they would tell about when them and I think Richard Burton would go on these drunken sprees in London. You know, and they just used to tell these horrible, like Michael Caine was once saying, they went to a pub that was so bad, you name it, you could get it. You like an animal? Oh, it's yours. You know, you want somebody to defecate on you? Just ask for it. And he got so drunk. The next day he woke up in the motel room and Peter O'Toole looked at him and said, "Thank you. You got us banned from that nightclub," and never told Michael Caine what he did.
That's awesome.
Anyways, getting back to it. These guys were, according to Woolsey, incompetent. Michael Caine's character was not a fop. Bromhead was an engineer. The tall British staff sergeant, the one who was, never broke a sweat. He was a 22-year-old. He was short. He was like 5 feet 4 inches or something. And this is the one I find. I don't know why they did it. Hook, the drunken gambler that was there. When they showed Zulu in England, Hook's family got up and walked out in protest. Hook was nothing like that. Hook was a teetotaler. He was a Christian. He was there because he was assigned there. He was sick, which was why he was in the infirmary. He was nothing like they were portrayed in the movie. The only part about go ahead.
No, finish.
They portrayed him as a butthead, and in reality, he was. Yeah,
there was actually a line where they were implying that he was a thief, a drunk, and a malingerer because he was faking being sick.
Yeah.
That's how the movie portrayed the guy.
Yeah. But and the family got so upset, because he was so so maligned, they got up in the middle of the movie and walked out. Now, to his credit, when from the things I've read, the fight scene in the hospital is the most accurate fight scene in the movie. When the Zulus are attacking the hospital and they're breaking down, and they're cutting their way through the walls to get from one room to the other, and he's there defending them and pulling the sick guys out. That he actually did. Frank Bourne. Oh, you're talking about the hang on a second. Yes, I think it is Frank Bourne. I think it is Frank Bourne, the tall master sergeant. That name sounds familiar. Yeah, in real life, he was not that stereotypical British staff sergeant.
Right.
But he apparently was good. And from this one, from what I've read, so many scenes were inaccurate. The defenses apparently were... Let me see. Apparently, the defenses... Do you remember the cooks?
Yes.
Do you remember the cooks that joined the battle? Apparently, one of them was the one who set up most of the defenses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was running around helping to set up the defenses. But from what I was reading from like the war movie buff, let's see. He lists 6 things about the movie and only lists one as history. All the rest are Hollywood. The Zulus firing, like, for example, the Zulus firing from the mountaintop, they were nothing. Right. They were not a threat because the movie implies it was the Zulu army with the Martini Henrys. And that, they were highly accurate. No, they had old rifles they picked up 20, 30 years ago. This would be like you and me sitting up in the mountains somewhere and taking pot shots with a BB gun. The military would not be upset with us.
See, I was under the impression that was some of the rifles from the dead soldiers of the previous battle. That's what I thought.
That's what the movie stressed, that these Zulu warriors had top-notch rifles. They didn't. They were mostly the spears, the assegais, and they were mostly these old military arms that were practically useless. And they said, for example, like in the first, there was only 400 of them. Do you remember the first attack when they move forward and then they'd bang the spears and then they'd move forward and then the British would shoot them and they'd move forward and they did that around the camp? In reality, they just attacked in a frontal way, thinking we'll overwhelm them with numbers. And the British opened fire at 500 meters, and the Zulus returned fire with the crappy guns. The Zulus weren't making any battle noises. They weren't stopping. They weren't doing the chants or banging the shields. And they finally at 50 meters abandoned the attack because they were getting gunned down too much by the British.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like that scene when they get there and they go over the wall and the British are doing the, you know, the line, you know, okay, your turn. They fall back to reload while the other one fires. Never happened. And and the other scene that never happened. Remember the scene when they started to fall around the hospital and the Zulus were coming in, and then the wall broke open and all the buffalo came out and crushed all the Zulu? Never happened. Completely made up.
But see, again, this is where Hollywood just bolsters everything into a movie to make it entertaining. Again, I didn't like all the stereotypical characters. And again, before anybody jumps on me, yeah, I know that's the era of filmmaking. That's what storytelling was. I get it. You always had the girl who fainted or cried or was terrified. And I'm happy to hear that she didn't exist. But the priest, why did every priest in movies back at that time have to be a drunk? You know?
Yeah. And that was the sad part, because he wasn't a drunk. He wasn't a coward. He agreed.
He had a
with the
dialogue.
Yeah, he agreed
he had
with the
dialogue
British invasion.
Right.
You know, he was not. You know, the scene where he calls all the auxiliary troops to run, get out of here, go, never happened. He wasn't even there when that happened. That was I think that was a Danish or a Boer auxiliary that retreated. He just told his auxiliary, because he had been the Sandawana, and when he saw them coming, it was like, get the hell out of here, and they all retreated.
Right.
You know, and the fighting on the roof was pure Hollywood. And remember the scene? Do you remember Scheisse, the guy that was wounded in the leg and kept on fighting with the crutch?
Yeah.
And he goes and, Chad's about to get killed, and Scheisse, beats the warrior over the head and saves him. Never happened. No, he didn't save Chad's life. He didn't save Chad's life, but he did leave the hospital, and he kept on supplying the troops with with ammunition.
Right. Now, one of the things I think that they should have harped on in this movie, but they only showed you at the beginning, is the fact that the priest who was running the missionary slash hospital had an open dialogue with the Zulu warriors, the king, and they had a good dialogue together. He was even willing to explore this Christianity thing that they'd never really heard about. But that's all we ever got until they came to the scene where they let the drunken priest and his non-existent daughter leave, and the Zulus let them go. But I thought that they should have maybe gave us a little more about the fact that the Zulu were no stranger to these people.
My opinion, I don't know if it's true, is the movie was trying to portray the Zulus not as barbaric warriors, as fierce, loyal warriors.
Right.
They stand up and about ready to attack, and the chief's like, no, they're civilians.
Right.
And now, to
me, it just shows they're not barbarians.
Exactly, which they weren't. Yes, they were fierce fighters. Now, this was the scene. This was the scene that devastated me. You remember the end, when all the warriors gather around, and the British is like, they think it's over. And the warriors all gather around, and the British are like, this is it. And the warriors start doing the chant. And they start, banging the shields and dancing and doing the chat. And then the British start singing that Men of Harlech tune, which was a Welsh tune that was very popular. Never happened.
Why would it?
Well, I always thought it was I always thought it happened because it was the Zulus saying, "We respect you. You're a warrior." So the British said, "Okay, let's sing this stupid Welsh song, and we respect you. You're warriors." Never happened that way. The Zulu army fought for about 12 hours straight, and they eventually gave up. And according to the reports I've read, they were barely making it back to camp. They were dragging the spears. They were dragging the shields. There was a group that showed up that had not been in the battle, and they did stand on the cliff overlooking Rorke's Drift, and they just stood there for an hour watching and then disappeared. But there was no salute. There was no warrior gratitude or any expression like that.
Right. Well, I mean, looking at it from a war stance, I mean, have you ever heard of two armies stopping the fight and then, basically patting each other on the shoulder? Hey man, good fight.
Not during a battle. I mean, there was the Christmas truce during World War One.
Well, but that was a truce. I mean, I just found it a little far-fetched that the Zulus would show back up and then show all this dignity to these guys, even though they lost. It seems to me they would just walk back over and say, screw it.
Yeah. Well, I was like 20 when I saw the movie. I was young, idealistic.
Right.
Now, this is interesting. I did find this. There was a 140-minute Rorke's Drift. Only 17 were killed, and 2 were wounded. And the Zulu deaths, the 4,000 Zulus that attacked, over 500 were killed.
Mm-hmm.
And hang on, buddy. I got to see something here. Now, the same guy, War Movie Buff, gave this movie 0.46. He did not like this. He said many will be surprised that is much more inaccurate than Zulu Dawn. I'm a fan of Zulu and Great War movies, but too many people think that because it combines great entertainment with history, it's great history. It's not.
Right. And that's kind of where I'm coming at with some of my attitude towards the filmmaking of the day.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound like I'm being a dick about it, but let's face it. They just put so much crap in there. If I go to watch a movie and I know that's what I'm getting, then I'll enjoy it. But if I'm looking at a historical thing, I'd like a little more accuracy to my story. Don't change people's, don't change the way the people are just because you think the public's going to want to see the movie better. I don't need the drunken priest. I need the priest that just says, maybe we shouldn't do this and I'll be about my business now. But they turned him into a whiny, cry little, bitch, basically. Even his daughter was stronger than him.
Oh God, I could not stand her.
It was hard to watch.
She just pissed the hell out of me. And yes, useless Facebook user. Color Sergeant Bourne was actually very young for the rank and was in fact of diminutive stature. I'm trying to find out. I have somewhere here that this battle apparently. There were more Victoria Crosses, I think, in this battle than any other battle. And that was one of the things at the end, and I can't find it, which is driving me nuts. But yeah, there definitely was. Wait a minute. What? Here it is. 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded to the defenders of Rorke's Drift. 7 of them to soldiers of one of the units, the most ever received for a single action by one regiment.
There's a lot.
Yeah. And they said the most awarded in a single day was 16, and that was in a battle in 1854, which was, I think, the Crimea War. But that was a huge European versus European battle. So
Michael Caine, can I go on this rant?
Go ahead.
I love this. Okay, so I forgot that he was in this movie. And this, to me, it was almost like seeing him for the first time in his youth.
Yes.
Because in all the movies I've seen him in, yeah, he's a great actor. I enjoy most of his movies, but everybody kept talking about what a heartthrob he was. When I finally figured out that was him, I'm like, holy shit, no wonder these girls are going crazy about him. He had the blonde curly hair and all that stuff. But I really hated his character. The guy looked like he was on shrooms the whole time. He was just so aloof. I can't imagine anybody being like that anywhere.
Well, it's funny. I was reading somewhere. They asked him, because it was his first role. He'd done a few unlisted bit parts. And when he applied for this, they said, get out. Well, he got a call the next day because the person who was supposed to take his part got sick, and they were leaving that afternoon. So they called Michael Caine and said, you want to take the guy's role? So he flew to South Africa with them to do the part. So if he hadn't done that movie, that was his first major role. And he said, I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I just went with it.
It was funny to watch him, but just his whole demeanor, the guys, the other guys are running around and he's just like, and
that's something else. One of the things pointed out, these guys they're at a camp. They're not a military parade in front of, the palace for the Queen Victoria. There's no way that they were going to be standing there in battle in South Africa in 100+ heat with the big red.
That's the other thing.
Perfectly. I mean, there wasn't even dust on it with the big red hats and firing the rifles. And at the end of the movie, now they did say one reason why people fought for that is after the battle, when the photographers came, they all dressed up and stood for the posed photographs. So everybody just assumed that they fought the battle in their dress uniforms.
Well, that's one of the things that I hit on was how can you be in that kind of weather in full battle rattle like that? Because those uniforms, that's a lot of fabric for one. The other thing I noticed, and if you go back and look, when the final fight is finished, everybody's dirty except Michael Caine. Not a bit of dirt on that guy. They kept him pretty.
Well, it reminds me of the line from Monty Python. Why isn't he covered with shit? He's the king.
Yeah, exactly.
And yes, seriously, the guy who writes War Movie Buff gave Zulu a 0.46.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, it's a great, don't get me wrong. As a Hollywood movie, it's a 9.5 out of 10.
You'll enjoy watching it. If anybody watches it, you'll like it.
It is a fantastic movie. The way Michael Caine develops from that foppish idiot to a warrior. The guy like Hook. The guy who wasn't really a malanderer and a drunk and a thief. Who rose to the battle and saved most of those guys from the hospital. The Zulu, and they used Zulus in that movie.
That was cool, though.
Yeah, they actually used Zulu warriors, so they could have the realism for it.
Yeah,
but it's a great movie. I love the movie. I loved watching it again. I watched the movie. Then I go and I look up the accuracy for it. And this, I got to admit, I was so devastated. Oh, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. Yeah, but I was so devastated to find out this movie was crap.
I know. And to find out that the way they did the battle wasn't really it. Because when they showed how the Zulus were coming in, I thought that was awesome. They'd send a bunch in, and then they'd fall back, and then somebody else would come over here. They literally built that bullhead you were talking about in Zulu.
Yeah, and and then the I can't remember his name, but the boar who retreated to Asana One was there and saying they're just testing you. They're just trying to see where your weaknesses are.
Yeah. Oh. See, and I like that those guys were in that first movie because they'd been fighting Zulu way before the British, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
The British.
Right. Well, they were fighting everybody.
Yeah.
You know, but it was kind of nice to have that character come in and kind of bridge the gap here and there.
Yeah.
I just didn't care for that final scene, you know, where they're like, oh, they're giving you respect as warriors. And I'm like, bullshit.
I loved it. I still loved it. I thought it was like I said, I was 20. I was naive. Oh, and the general who referred to the to Chad and Bromhead as like idiots was General Garnet Wolseley, who took over from Lord Chelmsford after the Great Defeat. So he knew these guys personally. So
right.
So, but it's a great movie. Zulu, fantastic movie. I would watch it. Just
to watch.
It's Hollywood. It's Hollywood than history.
But I definitely like Zulu better than Zulu Dawn.
Zulu Dawn, yeah.
I don't think I'll ever watch Zulu Dawn again, but I would probably sit down for Zulu.
I've watched it twice, once years ago and then once for this.
And they both used the same opening scene. That irritated me too.
Yeah.
It was okay for Zulu because I was just introduced to it.
Yeah. It's a great movie. I do love it. You know, if I had to pick 10 movies to be stranded with during the apocalypse, that would probably be in the 10. So, plus, I love Michael Caine. No matter what Michael Caine, except The Reef.
The Reef was, and maybe Jaws 4, was it?
Oh my god!
But he was the only thing I liked about that movie. His character.
Somebody asked him, "Why did you make The Reef?" Jaws 4, the hand, and he said, "Rent money."
Yeah. He was honest.
Now, getting off topic, one of my favorite Michael Caine characters is the psychiatrist from
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, I can't think of it with
was it Dressed to Kill?
Dressed to Kill.
Yeah.
Dressed to Kill. That is one of my favorite Michael Caine movies.
And you know what? He played that part so well that I was actually shocked. When his ending hit.
Don't say
I was just like, oh.
You know, but then you watch him in like The Swarm and things like that. And it's like,
you know, but he's been in a lot of bad movies, but his character's like the one character that you'll watch the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Tarzan movies. I'm all about that Tarzan shit.
Except the one with Alexander Skarsgård.
No, not that one.
My second ex-wife, she loved Alexander Skarsgård. He could read the phone book, and she would sit there for 4 hours, and she took me to the movie to see it. And I still say, if the German actor from Inglourious Bastards and Samuel Jackson can't save a movie, it's not worth seeing.
Right. I used to watch the Tarzan show on Saturdays.
Oh God, I remember
the
that.
Tarzan. Yeah, the Tarzan movies were usually on in the afternoon. It was great stuff.
And one question they never answered: why didn't Tarzan have a beard?
Oh no, he's the most well-shaved, wild man I've ever seen. Didn't even have hair on his chest.
No, I know. So, does anybody have any questions for us about the movies?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. So so Zulu Dawn, worth watching once. Zulu, love it. Great Hollywood, crappy history, but it's still worth the effort. And if you want to know more, Washing of the Spears, it's probably about 30, 40 years old, but it's one of the best books written about the Zulu War. And then there was I watched it and I don't remember. There was a series that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, Zulu. Or maybe Chaka Zulu.
Zulu.
Yeah, which was about the Zulu dynasty, but I don't think it covered the wars. So.
You know, one of the little micro things I liked about Zulu.
Yeah.
I could not get enough close-ups of their spears.
Mm.
You know, I mean, if I'm not a weapons maker, but those were some very fine tipped spears, and they were designed specifically for their type of hunting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought they were amazing. And I just would have loved to have a spot that I could freeze frame and just soak that thing in. Because weren't those spears also designed that you could make it like, no, I don't want to say waddle, sound waves. They would use it during hunting.
Oh, maybe.
I mean, the actual sword. I know they had another tool that was on a string that they could make noise to flush out things, but I think those swords, I mean, those spears, I think they made a specific sound.
They didn't even call them that. I mean, they were called, the Zulus called them assegais.
Mm-hmm.
So, pipe down. We're almost done.
Well, I'm an uneducated American. It's a spear with a really cool, sharp, pointy point. Yes, I see what they're saying.
I do agree with you, but I do think they tried to at least portray them as noble,
educated savage.
Noble savages. I know that's not, when this is on Facebook, I'll get banned for a month for it. But the movie, especially Zulu, I think tried to show them as, decent warriors, just different from the not barbarians. All right.
It's all a matter of perspective. Because in South Africa, they're not barbarians. They're a formidable army.
Yeah.
They're designed for where they live. To us, we call them barbarians or savages.
Yeah. And
Native Americans went through the same shit. We called them savages, and they weren't.
No, I know. Yeah, who were the savages there? And
we are.
Somebody asked the question earlier. Here it is. You mentioned the Native Americans. I don't know how many Native Americans Custer went up against. I don't think it was similar. I don't think it was 500. I mean, 4,000. I don't think it was. And ironically, my friend who visited Isandlwana also visited Custer's last stand. He actually got to stand on the spot where Custer was murdered.
Now, I would,
where he fell in battle.
He was defeated.
Yeah.
I would love to do a show on that battle and maybe some other Native American battles, but Custer's a unique individual because I'm not sure. I haven't really done my research, but everything I know is he was just arrogant to the point where he just made bad decisions and got everybody killed around him.
Oh yeah. He was an ass.
Even when they brought Custer in on the last part of that show, Hell on Wheels, they portrayed his arrogance, but they didn't put him in battles. He was in Washington. Did you watch that series?
No, I didn't. No.
You would love that series.
Hell on Wheels?
Hell on Wheels. It's all about the building of the Continental Railroad. Yeah, coast to coast. Yeah. A lot of good characters in there.
Yeah. No, he was somebody I know compared him to Jeb Stewart.
Who?
He was a showman. He was everybody outside the military loved him, but he was just trouble in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I didn't inhale Fred here. I'm getting over a really bad head cold. Fred, ironically, doesn't shed that much. Now, the cats, that's another story. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. 2 weeks from tonight, Dan and I are going to be back, and we're going to be doing, this time, the Alamo.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is new to me because I know nothing about the Alamo except, the Texans think it's their Rorke's Drift. So,
well, you know what? It was a battle. It was overwhelming odds. I'll just go that far, but I can't wait for next week's show.
Yeah, I've never seen either of the Alamo movies we're going to be reviewing, and I have no clue about the history of this. So this is going to be fun for me. So again, everybody, thank you. For those of
Thanks
you who
for tuning in.
Yes, thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. And for those of you who celebrate, please, happy Halloween. And just remember, don't steal the little kids' candy. Steal it from the big kids. All right, everybody, have a good one. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.